What on earth is this?
I'm here on the extreme southwest coast of Ireland, on the Beara Peninsula in County Cork. It's a spectacular, and spectacularly exposed to the elements, part of the country that has found fame as part of the Wild Atlantic Way, the 1,500-mile hiking trail frequented mainly by tourists who must not be aware that there are warmer and sunnier places that they could be spending their time instead. I'm just joking, I love this part of the world. Just off the far western end of this remote outcrop of land is Dursey Island, which could be said to be the most southwesterly island in the country. This spectacular island has become a major tourist destination for ramblers and people who love being slapped around by the wind. It's defined by its dramatic landscapes, wonderful views of the open Atlantic, and a speed sign that tries to gaslight you into thinking that 100 kilometers an hour is an appropriate speed for this road. Almost all islands in Ireland, even the most remote and uninhabited ones, have some form of ferry service that allow people, both residents and non-residents, to access them year-round. But Dursey Island, by an unfortunate quirk of Ireland's geography, has a little bit of an issue on that front.
Right, well, I know it doesn't exactly look like the Northwest Passage, but Dursey Sound is an incredibly treacherous body of water, deceptively so. First off, it has extremely strong tidal currents, which cause large waves and whirlpools, and also riptides for people who are stupid enough to go swimming in here. It also obviously has very jagged rocks on either side, but the biggest problem is that while most of it is about 11 meters in depth, in the middle, there's a huge rock formation that's only 30 centimeters below the water. So any ships that don't know it's there are going down.
So what was the solution? Well, if you can't cross by water and a bridge would be too cumbersome to construct on such a rocky, steep shoreline, the only way was up. And in 1969, the local council paid an amount of money which seems to no longer be publicly available knowledge to construct a rather weird-looking cable car in order to help not only people but also animals traverse the Dursey Sound. For the past 55 years, with a few breaks here and there, the Dursey Island cable car has trundled back and forth over the water, taking around 8 minutes per journey.
And here it is. It's 374 metres long, 22 metres off the ground, and can hold a maximum of 6 people. It is, to this day, Ireland's only cable car. And there's an interesting claim that I keep seeing, which is that it is the only cable car in Europe that crosses over open seawater. Now, that's kind of true. There is a cable car in Barcelona that goes from the top of a hill to the top of a tower in the marina, and as a result it crosses over seawater. It just crosses to a man-made harbour wall rather than between two islands. So I suppose the record here is that it's the only cable car in Europe that crosses over like a natural body of seawater. But open seawater, that's the phrase that I keep seeing Cork County Council use. And I don't know, when I think of open seawater, I think of like the open ocean. I have no idea why I'm going on this tangent. But if you agree, then write to Cork County Council and tell them to, I don't know, fix their claim, rephrase their claim.
For years, this was a convenient way for tourists and locals to travel back and forth from Dursey Island. But as I mentioned earlier, this cable car, as the only means of getting across the water, was also needed to transport animals to the mainland and back, be it for veterinary care, breeding purposes, or market sales. And so there are plenty of truly surreal photos out there featuring everything from cows to sheep being loaded into this little shed of a cable car and shunted off into the great beyond. But in 2011, Cork County Council lowered the cable car's load limit from 544 kilograms to 400 kilograms, which meant that a lot of cows were suddenly banned from using it, and livestock usage of the car was reduced to just sheep and other small animals. To the 4 farmers left living and working on the island, this decision was a disaster, and after a 10-year dispute, County Cork decided to... let me check my notes. Ban all animals from using the cable car. I bet the farmers love that one. Thanks, Cork. And for those 4 people still living on the island, things got even worse in 2022.
Unfortunately, as the only lifeline on and off this island, any disruption to the service has pretty dramatic knock-on effects for the islanders. In March 2022, the cable car was closed for maintenance for 8 months. And it was only at the last minute that Cork County Council decided to put a replacement boat service on that would run maybe once a day. And initially their plan was to not do anything and just leave the people stranded on the island. But unfortunately, because of the issues that I've already explained about Dursey Sound, any boat service is extremely unreliable. And in weather like this, it just wouldn't run. There would be days at a time where there would be no service. And as a result, the people on the island would be stuck there until further notice. There were actually a few islanders who spoke to Irish TV channel RTE and said they were going to abandon the island if the maintenance wasn't completed faster, because their livestock was all at risk of starving and they had no way of accessing the mainland.
It's reopened now, obviously, and has become a thing that people travel to see in its own right, like I did because I'm a gigantic dork. And the numbers are only going up. Around 20,000 visitors come to Dursey Island via the cable car every year, with one on-site operator telling me that queues on either side can last up to 4 or 5 hours in the height of summer. And people visit Dursey Island for good reason. It's not just some lonely spot of land, but a unique and storied part of Ireland.
You'd think that an island this sort of remote and windswept and rugged would be uninhabited for most of its history, but nope, the Irish seem to like their windswept islands.
Aha, Ted, I say gens.
And this island has been inhabited for literally thousands of years. There have been prehistoric remains and pieces of art found on the island before. There's also some history from the Napoleonic era. In the 1600s as well, it was one of the last strongholds of Irish chieftains holding out against the English crown during the 9 Years' War, and was subsequently the site of the massacre of everyone who lived on the island by the English. And also, a fun fact, a more recent fact, is they've recently discovered that during the Second World War, the island was emblazoned with huge white letters reading "Era" to show Axis fighter pilots that they were flying over neutral Irish airspace and not Britain.
In terms of its practical ability to serve the island, the Dursey Island cable car has an interesting role to play in the island's future, and has been at the centre of a bit of a local feud in recent years. In 2019, Cork County Council announced that it had lodged an application to An Bord Pleanála, Ireland's planning authority, for a complete €10 million rebuild of the cable car, replacing all of the old infrastructure with new cables, towers and cars, and the construction of a visitor centre which looks like something from a futuristic ski resort. The plan was controversial. An Bord Pleanála's own inspector's report actually recommended that the reconstruction not go ahead, as the plans would, quote, result in a negative effect on the environment and would be contrary to climate change objectives, as well as harming local bird populations by encouraging more tourists to visit the area. But the board went, nah, you're alright, and approved the scheme anyway, much to the dismay of Irish environmental groups, and the board were met with further fury when they attempted to assuage these concerns by capping the visitor numbers at 5,000 people per month, which, if your mental maths is quick enough, you might have calculated is 3 times the current rate of visitors, so that's a weird precedent to set. Following this complicated back and forth, an environmentalist group called Friends of the Irish Environment ended up challenging An Bord Pleanála's greenlighting of the plans, and in 2022 the Irish High Court actually sided with the activists and blocked the project. So what happens now? Well, it's hard to say. Cork Council, who are desperate for the rebuild to go ahead, say they are, quote, gutted, unquote, about the plans falling through, but have hinted that they may rejig the wording of the application and just try again. Friends of the Irish Environment, meanwhile, have attempted to extend an olive branch, suggesting that the council still go ahead with an upgrade, but on a much smaller scale. They say that an earlier plan for the site, which would have just served as an upgrade to the existing infrastructure rather than a total replacement, would be an acceptable compromise, as it would keep visitor numbers stable and would only cost €1 million rather than 10 million. But whether Cork Council will accept such a minor upgrade that omits the visitor centre and doesn't actually improve access to the island is another matter entirely. So for now, the Dursey Island cable car is safe. The most important element of this saga is undoubtedly the potentially disastrous environmental impact that would come with a rebuild of the cable car. But while it might sound silly, I think plenty of people, including me, would be truly sad if this one-of-a-kind piece of engineering heritage were thrown away. I mean, look at those mad support structures. It's a bespoke, unique little piece of infrastructure that, if the council eventually gets its way, is set to be replaced with a bland, generic model that you could see anywhere else. Personally, I wouldn't travel to see that. I would say go visit the current cable car, as we don't know how much longer it'll be around, but as we've learned, the region is already suffering from over-tourism and it would be irresponsible for me to do that. Whether or not the rebuild goes ahead, the Dursey Island cable car system will still be Ireland's only one, so it'll remain noteworthy either way, and such a shiny new toy will no doubt help the local economy. I actually spoke to a local who was disappointed that the rebuild had been scrapped, and it would be the height of English-splaining for me to rock up to a small Irish village and tell them what's best for them by insisting that their economic well-being should be sacrificed for the sake of a flock of Manx shearwaters. But if Cork Council eventually gets its way and An Bord Pleanála's Day of Judgment does come to Dursey Island, it'll be hard to watch this thing get torn down.
One take. No, I'm just joking. That was like the 8th take. It's the most Tom Scott video I've ever made. Hey everybody, what's up? It's me, less entertaining Tim Traveller.
Oh. Well, don't look at me like that. Well, hang on. Don't look at me like that. It's horrible outside. I don't want to be out there anymore. I feel sorry for my camera. And also the gain settings are so hard to get right on a microphone when it's this windy. Yeah, so those of you who have stuck around, hold on, you get a reward in the form of some juicy information. The cable car is currently closed, and it's been closed all day. But yeah, basically, there's a very lovely man who works here called David, who who operated the cable car just so that I could film it, just sent it back and forth a couple of times. So if you're ever here, say thank you to David. Oh God, the windscreen's getting all steamed up now. If you're ever here, say thank you to David, because he's very nice. And also, let me know what it's like going on the cable car. The footage earlier of me inside it, David just let me sit in it at the station. He must have thought I was a lunatic. Either way, thank you to David, and thank you for watching. And now I'm going to go back to England.